Aubrey, today's the big day.
Right? The episode you guys have been waiting for. You've heard our sample answers, trying to stay very close to exactly what test day will be like, so you have a really good idea. And now we're going to give you that detailed feedback and the scores so that you have an idea of, okay, what would these sample answers score on test day?
So guys, we are going to break it down part by part, but we do need to remind you that on test day, guys, the examiner does not give you scores for each part, okay? The examiner, it gives you an overall score for your entire performance. So that's really what makes the job of examiner so difficult, is that the entire time you are talking, guys, we are calculating, going up and down in our heads in 4 different scoring categories because we're not allowed to take notes either. Examiners cannot take notes. If you see an examiner writing something, they're just writing the time because they're keeping track of time, but we're not allowed to keep notes on your scores or answers. So the entire time we're just making mental calculations and adjusting. But we are today, guys, going to talk about what the examiner would be thinking about your score in each part. So in episode 1 of this series, Aubrey gave answers for part 1. So let me tell you about why she would score a 9. So for fluency and coherence, Aubrey would score a 9 because she had so many great natural fillers and connectors. Okay. Her ideas were always organized. She gave a lot of information for each answer. She didn't repeat ideas. And she also offered specific examples. So examples of free time, like paddle boarding, examples of where to go for entertainment, strip malls. So not only are these specific ideas great for fluency and coherence, but they're also great for vocabulary, okay? You have to dive into details, guys, or you're not going to score well for vocab or fluency, okay? So you can go back and watch that part 1 video, guys, because you will hear lots of great native fillers like, sort of like a desert also, and well, but especially. So these are all informal daily connectors, but there was still a variety and it was always organized and natural. For vocab, I heard so many great idioms. Let's see, dive into my to-do list. That whole phrase is great. Dive into is like tackle, right? My to-do list, things I have to do, but it's better to say my to-do list. To do something off and on, it just means sometimes. So off and on is better than sometimes. Revolves around was another great phrase you used. It revolves around something. It means it's connected to something, right? Ram into each other, you said, when you're describing American football. I don't like American football either, but like the choice of vocab is really good because like it also shows your feelings about it. Because if someone liked American football, they would talk about like strong tackles, but you're like, oh, these dudes are just ramming into each other. It's terrible. So ram is like crash into, like aggressively and violently. And again, just getting specific, talking about free time, banjos, string instruments. So much great vocabulary there, guys. You should really go back and listen. And of course, pronunciation was amazing. Again, 9s for everything, guys. I want you to go back and listen to her stress on certain words because that shows feeling, that shows personality, right? Like ideal for me. Like we really focus on ideal because we really think something is perfect. And you're like, I got 4 kids. So like every word in that sentence was stressed because that's all important, right? Describing where you live, it's way too hot. So the stressed words, guys, I want you to go back and really focus on those and mimic the way Aubrey is speaking in those sample answers. And then grammar, of course, a 9, because there were a variety of sentence structures, but I'm not going to dive into that, guys, because that is not what is going to increase your score watching right away. It's those other 3 categories.
Awesome. Okay. This is so useful, you guys. I definitely recommend you go back now that you've heard feedback for that part one, those part one answers, the whole section, go back and listen, because now you're going to see what Jessica's talking about. I know it's been a couple of weeks. You want to remind yourself, take this whole series very holistically to listen to those, listen to the feedback, listen again. It's going to be so useful for your score. Okay, I'm going to talk about part two. Jessica described a time she gave someone advice. And we mentioned in that video that she didn't really even get around to telling the advice. But if you listen to her answer, think about the scoring system. What in that could possibly come down, right? She was extremely fluent, coherent with linking phrases, lots of new ideas, nothing repeated, band 9 for fluency and coherence, really high level vocabulary, talking about all of the, what she said, tough, only, let's see, guys, my handwriting is terrible. Oh, I see. Okay. She was listing adjectives when she started saying, Aubrey is lovely, delightful, wonderful, beautiful. And then she started saying, this is typical for our personality type. She took that opportunity to use all these high level adjectives to boost her vocabulary score, and then describing us as achievers, productive. And then she was saying that you would approach a place of, such a high level way to describe, instead of just saying get to, you're at this place, or you get to this place. All this band 9 vocab that's just less common than what a student might necessarily say, pushing that vocab score up. And then her pronunciation was so good when she was emphasizing, only, if ever she said only, she's emphasizing that. She's saying, this is not fantastic for something, right? So if you go back and listen to how her pronunciation fluctuates, never a monotone, right? And then so great with her fillers, where she will say, oh my gosh, and then jump right into an interesting filler where she's saying something that could be stated at the beginning of any question without that pause.
Are we talking about part 3 now?
Oh, yes, right.
Okay. All right, great.
Gotta separate. So that's all for part 2. Excellent job. And just coming back to your note, that even if you don't get around to answering the question, if you're speaking fluently for 2 minutes, that's what the examiner is listening for, right?
Yeah. So just remember, guys, that the examiner is looking at one scoring rubric, right? There's not a different rubric and descriptors for part 1, part 2, part 3, right? So there's nothing in the scoring rubric that is like, did not specifically answer part 2 cue card topic. I stuck to the topic. Right? I was still talking about the topic, and that's enough.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so let's move on to part 3. Yes, like let's be separate here. So yes, these fillers, if you listen to Jessica's part 3 answers, each time she's starting it with this interesting reaction to the question, right? To say, oh my gosh, definitely, or never, I would never think of that, right? So listen to those fillers. If you need just a second before you know exactly what you want to say, or to get vocab, you want some of those things that you could say to begin any answer, right? But notice how after saying, oh my gosh, something like that, it always is different, right? She's adjusting how she reacts to the sentence. The vocab is different. The phrases are different each time. So there's not the vocab repetition that might pull down that score. And then notice her linking phrases in part 3. However, that depends on, for example, a lot of great linking phrases that are boosting her fluency and coherence score. And then for vocab, band 9 words like tumultuous, slang like FOMO, and keep in mind, even on part 3, if that's appropriate for the question, a slang, very native, natural phrase there is still boosting your vocab score, even on part 3.
So just to note the meaning of those words, though, tumultuous is like stormy, a lot of trouble, chaos, right? Tumultuous. And then FOMO is an acronym that means fear of missing out. And it's something that is easy to fit into part 3 answers when we're discussing like modern problems.
Yes. Oh, good point, right? Yes. And check the notes. We'll have this vocab defined for you because those are, yes, excellent to use anywhere on the IELTS speaking exam. And then for her pronunciation, again, just like part 2, you guys know Jessica, she's so expressive in how she speaks, never a monotone. You can hear her emotion. If she's excited about something or maybe a little bit annoyed, you can hear that. This is one mistake students often make, that if you're thinking about the vocabulary and thinking about all the other things you have to think about, you might forget that you need to show emotion. Your intonation needs to match so that it's appropriate for the answer, appropriate for what you're saying. And Jessica always really nails that. Great to mimic anything she's saying. You guys know, you hear it.
I'm expressive. I'm emotional.
Yes. And then of course, band 9 grammar, just like you said, with a variety of structures, correct verb tenses, correct use of pronouns. But like you said, I like that isn't what you want to be focusing a lot of time on, because these other 3 scores are going to be easier once you know the strategies to boost all of them.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you. I feel so good about myself
well
now. Guys, so yes, overall, of course, us together, we would get a 9 overall for our speaking performance in these videos. Guys, remember to hit like on this video. And if you haven't listened to the other series, go back and listen, and hit subscribe right now, guys, so you don't miss our next IELTS YouTube series. And go right now to allearsenglish.com/IELTS quiz. You could take a free IELTS quiz and get your estimated IELTS band score, guys. And again, that's for free, so why not? It takes like 5 minutes. All right, awesome. Aubrey, the series has been super fun.
Yes, such a fun series. Kind of sad it's over, but guys, make sure you're subscribed because we're going to have a new one starting next week.
Yep, totally. All right, Aubrey, have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bonus tip, get a 7 or higher with the All Ears English app, featuring real-time transcripts and vocabulary practice that will push your score higher. Plus, fun video lessons with Lindsay, Michelle, and Jessica. Download the app today at allearsenglish.com/app.